The February rain hammered against the windows of the VA clinic in Oceanside, California, creating rivers down the glass that blurred the parking lot beyond. Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat in the waiting room, her service dog, a German shepherd named Atlas, resting his graying muzzle on her boot. She'd been staring at the same magazine page for 10 minutes, not really seeing it. She stood and Atlas rose with her, his movements slower than they used to be. The veterinarian, Dr. Marcus Webb, held the door to the examination room open. He was 50-ish, with the kind of face that had seen too many difficult conversations. Sarah had been a Navy helicopter pilot for 8 years before the crash in the Persian Gulf. The kind of crash that made headlines for a day, then disappeared. The kind that left her with a metal rod in her left leg, nerve damage in her right hand, and nightmares that Atlas had been trained to wake her from. She'd been medically retired at 29, 3 years ago, and Atlas had been with her for all of them. "How's our boy doing?" Dr. Webb asked, but his tone already told her everything. "He's been sleeping more," Sarah said quietly. "Not eating much. I know what you're going to say." Dr. Webb knelt down, running his hands over Atlas with professional gentleness. The dog's tail gave a weak thump. "His kidneys are failing, Sarah. We talked about this last month. He's in stage 4 now. I'm sorry." The words hit her like turbulence at 10,000 feet, expected but still jarring. "How long?" "Weeks, maybe a month if we're lucky. We can make him comfortable, but—" "I understand," she said, cutting him off before her voice could crack. "Thank you." She drove home in silence, Atlas in the passenger seat of her old Honda CR-V, watching the rain. The apartment she rented was in a complex full of other veterans, a place where nobody asked too many questions about why you sometimes sat on your balcony at 3 in the morning. That evening, she took Atlas for a slow walk around the neighborhood. He'd always loved the rain, and she wasn't going to deny him that now. They passed the small park where she'd trained him, where he'd learned to recognize the signs of her panic attacks before she even felt them coming. "We had a good run, buddy," she whispered. The next morning, Sarah reported to her civilian job at Camp Pendleton's logistics office. It wasn't flying, but it was something. She coordinated supply shipments, managed inventory databases, did the unglamorous work that kept a military base running. It paid the bills. Her supervisor, Gerald Hutchins, was already in a mood when she arrived. "You're late," he said, not looking up from his computer. Sarah glanced at the clock, 7:58 a.m. Her shift started at 8. "2 minutes early, actually," she said evenly. "Your attitude is noted." Gerald was a civilian contractor who'd never served but wore flag pins and talked about supporting the troops at every opportunity. He'd made it clear from day one that he didn't appreciate having a girl pilot on his team, especially one who'd been grounded. The morning passed in familiar tedium. Sarah processed requisition forms, responded to emails, and tried not to think about Atlas sleeping under her desk, his breathing labored. At lunch, she sat in her car and called the one person who always understood. "Sarah Chen, as I live and breathe," came the warm voice on the other end. Master Chief Petty Officer Rita Vance had been Sarah's mentor during her active duty years, a helicopter crew chief with 26 years of service. She'd retired to a small ranch in Montana but stayed in touch with her Navy kids. "Atlas is dying," Sarah said without preamble. Silence, then, "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry." They talked for 20 minutes. Rita didn't offer empty platitudes, didn't say everything would be okay. She just listened, the way good chiefs do. "You doing all right otherwise?" Rita asked finally. "Define all right." "That bad, huh?" Sarah told her about Gerald, about the sidelong glances from coworkers who thought she got special treatment because of her disability rating, about feeling like a ghost in a world she used to belong to. "You're stronger than you think," Rita said. "You always have been." "I don't feel strong." "Nobody does when they're going through it, But you are, remember that. When Sarah returned to the office, Gerald was standing at her desk with a woman she'd never seen before. Tall, angular, wearing an expensive suit that screamed consultant or auditor. "Ms. Chen, this is Diane Morrison from Regional Oversight," Gerald said, with barely concealed satisfaction. "There have been some concerns about inventory discrepancies in our department." Sarah's stomach tightened. "What kind of discrepancies?" "We'll be conducting a full audit," Morrison said, her voice clipped and professional. "I'll need access to all your files and communications for the past 6 months." "Of course," Sarah said, though alarm bells were ringing in her head. "But I maintain detailed records. Everything should be in order." Gerald smiled thinly. "We'll see." Over the next 3 days, Sarah's work life became a nightmare. Every decision was questioned, every email scrutinized. Morrison set up camp in a conference room and called Sarah in for interrogations disguised as meetings. "This requisition for medical supplies," Morrison said, sliding a printout across the table. $3,000 over budget. Can you explain?" "That was approved by Colonel Sanders in Medical Services," Sarah said patiently. "There was a training exercise that required additional trauma supplies. The authorization is attached. And this fuel shipment that arrived 2 days late. Weather delay. The transport company's report is in the file." It went on and on. Sarah realized with growing certainty that someone was trying to build a case against her, but she couldn't figure out why. She was a model employee, early, efficient, detail-oriented to a fault. Atlas deteriorated rapidly that week. He stopped eating entirely. Dr. Webb prescribed pain medication that helped, but Sarah could see it in his eyes. Her best friend was tired. On Friday evening, she sat on her apartment floor with Atlas's head in her lap, stroking his ears the way he liked. "I don't know if I can do this without you," she whispered. He looked at her with those deep brown eyes that had seen her through so much, and his tail moved just once, as if to say, "Yes, you can." That night, Sarah barely slept. She kept thinking about the audit, about Atlas, about the way her life seemed to be crumbling in slow motion. At 400, she gave up trying and took Atlas out to the beach. Camp Pendleton bordered the ocean, and there was a spot where veterans could walk their dogs off-leash in the early mornings. The Pacific was black and vast under a moonless sky. Atlas waded into the shallows, and for just a moment he looked young again, eager and strong and infinite. Sarah pulled out her phone and took a video, knowing she'd want to remember him like this. When they got back to the car, there was a missed call from a number she didn't recognize. A voicemail. "Lieutenant Chen, this is Commander James Wolfe. We haven't met, but I work with the Navy SEAL Canine program at Coronado. I heard about Atlas through the Veteran Network. I'd like to discuss something with you. Please call me back at your earliest convenience." Sarah played the message twice, confused. What would a SEAL Canine program want with a dying dog? She almost deleted it, almost convinced herself it was a wrong number or some kind of mistake. But something, maybe desperation, maybe hope, made her save it instead. Monday morning arrived with the weight of dread. Sarah dressed carefully, made sure her files were organized, prepared for another week of Morrison's inquisition. Atlas could barely walk to the car, and she'd made the decision. If he wasn't better by Wednesday, she'd make the call to Dr. Webb. The office felt different when she arrived. People were whispering, avoiding her eyes. Sarah's desk had been moved to a corner, away from the windows she usually enjoyed. Gerald approached with Morrison and another man, base security. "Sarah Chen, we need to talk to you about serious irregularities we've discovered," Gerald said, and there was triumph in his voice. "Missing equipment, unauthorized purchases, falsified reports." Sarah felt the floor drop out from under her. "That's not true, I've never." "We have evidence," Morrison interrupted. "You'll be placed on administrative leave pending a formal investigation. Security will escort you out." You can't be serious. Deadly serious, Gerald said. We don't tolerate theft here, Lieutenant. Or should I say, former lieutenant. The words were designed to cut, and they did. Sarah looked around at her coworkers, people she'd worked beside for 2 years, and saw only judgment in their faces. I want to see this evidence, she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. You'll have that opportunity during the formal hearing, Morrison said. Now please gather your personal belongings. Your access credentials are being revoked. Sarah packed her things in silence while everyone watched. Her hands shook as she disconnected her computer monitor, gathered her photos, her coffee mug with the Navy Wings logo. Atlas stood beside her, swaying slightly, sensing her distress. The security guard, a young Marine who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, walked her to her car. I didn't do what they're saying, Sarah said to him, not sure why she needed him to know. Yes, ma'am, he said quietly. For what it's worth, I believe you. It was small, but it was something. Sarah drove home in a daze. She'd survived a helicopter crash, months of painful rehabilitation, the end of her military career. But this being accused of dishonesty, of theft, this felt worse somehow. It attacked the core of who she was. At home, she sat at her kitchen table with Atlas at her feet and finally let herself cry. Not the quiet tears she'd shed over her injury or her lost career, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place she'd kept locked down for years. When she was empty, she wiped her face and picked up her phone. The voicemail from Commander Wolf was still there. What did she have to lose? She dialed the number. Wolf, came the answer after 2 rings. The voice was deep, authoritative, but not harsh. Commander, this is Lieutenant Sarah Chen. I'm returning your call about my dog. Lieutenant Chen, thank you for calling back. I know this must be a difficult time. I'll get straight to the point. I've been following Atlas's career as a service dog, and I have a proposition for you. Sarah almost laughed. Unless you can cure kidney failure, I don't think. I can't cure him, Wolf said, but I might be able to give him a purpose for the time he has left, and maybe give you one too. Commander James Wolf's office at Naval Base Coronado was nothing like Sarah expected. She'd imagined sterile military efficiency, but instead found organized chaos, photos of working dogs on every wall, commendation plaques, a bookshelf crammed with veterinary journals and training manuals. A young Belgian Malinois dozed in a corner, barely lifting his head when Sarah and Atlas entered. Lieutenant Chen, Wolf stood and extended his hand. He was maybe 45, tall and lean with the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades in the sun and salt. Thanks for coming. Just Sarah, she said. I'm retired. Retired, not former, there's a difference. He gestured to a chair and knelt down to greet Atlas properly, letting the old dog sniff his hand. Hey there, warrior. I've heard a lot about you. Atlas's tail moved weakly. Even in his deteriorated state, he responded to someone who understood dogs. You said you had a proposition, Sarah said, trying to keep hope from creeping into her voice. Wolf settled behind his desk. I work with the Multi-Purpose Canine Program. We train dogs for SEAL teams, patrol, detection, tracking. It's intense work and it requires a specific kind of animal. He paused. It also requires a specific kind of trainer. I'm not a dog trainer. No, but you're a pilot who learned to work with a service dog through some of the hardest recovery most people will ever face. You understand trust, communication, reading subtle signals. And Atlas here, he nodded toward the German Shepherd, has trained you as much as you've trained him. Sarah frowned. I still don't understand what this has to do with Atlas dying. We have a situation, Wolf said carefully. 3 months ago, one of our SEAL teams lost their canine handler in Afghanistan. The dog survived, a 4-year-old Malinois named Titan. He's skilled, sharp, but he's been refusing to work with anyone since his handler died. We've tried 6 different trainers. He either ignores them or, in 2 cases, showed aggression. I'm sorry for their loss, but what does? Titan needs someone who understands grief, Wolf interrupted gently. Someone who knows what it's like to lose their purpose and find a new one. And we need someone who can work with him in the next 3 to 4 weeks, because his SEAL team deploys in March, and they're not going without him. The timeline clicked. 3 to 4 weeks, exactly what Dr. Webb had given Atlas. You want me to train a military working dog while my own dog is dying, Sarah said flatly. I want you to give Atlas a mission for his final weeks. Let him help train Titan. Old dogs have wisdom, patience, calm energy. Titan might respond to Atlas in ways he won't respond to humans or young dogs. Wolf leaned forward. And I want to offer you a contract position. Good pay, purpose, a chance to be part of the community again. Sarah looked down at Atlas, who was watching her with those knowing eyes. I need to think about it, she said. Fair enough, but Sarah, Wolf's tone shifted, became more serious. Rita Vance called me. She told me what's happening with your civilian job, the accusations. Heat rose to Sarah's face. That's not, I didn't ask her to. She didn't betray your confidence. She's worried about you. And between you and me, those allegations sound like someone's building a case to cover their own mistakes. I've seen it before. Contractors who mismanage budgets and need a scapegoat. You don't even know me. I know your service record. I know Rita, and she doesn't vouch for people lightly. And I know we need someone like you. He slid a folder across the desk. Contract details, think about it. You can start whenever you're ready. Sarah took the folder but didn't open it. What if I can't do it? What if Titan doesn't respond? Then we're no worse off than we are now. But I don't think that's what will happen. Sarah left with more questions than answers. She drove back to Oceanside with the folder on the passenger seat and Atlas sleeping in the back, his breathing raspy. That evening, she sat on her balcony and finally opened the folder. The contract was generous, more than she'd been making at the logistics office. The work was temporary but could become permanent if it went well. There was a clause about working with classified personnel and a strict NDA. Her phone rang. Gerald Hutchins. Ms. Chen, this is a courtesy call to inform you that your hearing has been scheduled for March 15th. You're entitled to representation. Evidence will be presented by the Oversight Committee. Gerald, I didn't steal anything. I didn't falsify anything, you know that. What I know is that thousands of dollars of equipment went missing on your watch. The numbers don't lie. Then someone's manipulated the numbers, because I documented everything. That's your story. We'll see what the committee thinks. He hung up. Sarah stared at her phone, anger and fear warring in her chest. March 15th was 5 weeks away. 5 weeks of limbo, of waiting, of everyone assuming she was guilty. She looked at the contract from Wolf again. Maybe Rita was right. Maybe she was stronger than she thought. The next morning, Sarah called Commander Wolf and accepted the position. Outstanding, he said. Can you start Thursday? That soon. Titan's team leaves for pre-deployment training in 6 weeks. Every day counts. Thursday arrived cold and overcast. Sarah drove to Coronado with Atlas, her stomach a knot of anxiety. She'd been around military working dogs before, but always at a distance. This was different. Wolf met her at the kennels, a sprawling complex of runs and training yards. The sound of barking filled the air, not aggressive, but energetic, purposeful. Before you meet Titan, there's someone else you should meet, Wolf said. He led her to an office where a man was reviewing training footage on a laptop. He stood when they entered, and Sarah immediately recognized the bearing of a special operator, controlled, alert, economical in his movements. Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus Hayes, Wolf said, Titan's team leader. Marcus, this is Sarah Chen. Hayes was perhaps 35, black, with close-cropped hair and a scar that ran from his left eyebrow into his hairline. His handshake was firm but not crushing. Ma'am, he said, Appreciate you taking this on. I haven't done anything yet. You showed up, that's more than most. There was weight in his words. Titan's handler, Petty Officer Second Class Danny Cruz, was my best friend. Known him since Bud S. He'd want his dog to keep working. Sarah understood what he was really saying. Don't fail this. I'll do my best, she said. They walked to Titan's kennel. The Malinois was smaller than Sarah expected, maybe 60 pounds, with a tan coat and black muzzle. He was lying down but came to attention when they approached, eyes locked on Hayes. Hey, Titan, Hayes said softly. Got someone for you to meet. Wolf opened the kennel door carefully. Titan didn't move, but Sarah could see the tension in his body. Let Atlas go in first, Wolf said. Let them do their thing. Sarah unclipped Atlas's leash. Her old dog moved slowly into the kennel, non-threatening, calm. Titan watched him approach, head tilted. What happened next made Sarah's throat tight. Atlas walked right up to Titan and lay down beside him, close but not touching. Titan sniffed him carefully, then did something he apparently hadn't done in 3 months. He relaxed. His rigid posture softened. He put his head down, mirroring Atlas. I'll be damned, Hayes whispered. They worked for 2 hours that first day. Sarah didn't try to train Titan or give commands. She just sat in the kennel with both dogs, letting them get used to her presence. She talked quietly about nothing, the weather, the ocean, her memories of flying. Titan watched her with intelligent, cautious eyes. Trust would take time. Over the next 2 weeks, a routine developed. Sarah arrived at 600, worked with both dogs until noon, then spent afternoons reviewing training protocols and learning the specific commands Titan needed to master. Atlas slept more each day, but when he was awake, he seemed to have purpose again. He'd sit beside Titan during training sessions, his calm presence helping the younger dog focus. Wolf had been right. Atlas was teaching Titan in ways no human could: patience, steadiness, how to work through grief and keep going. Sarah found herself healing too. The structure, the mission, the community of handlers and trainers who treated her like a colleague, not a charity case, it all reminded her who she used to be. But not everything was improving. The rumors about her firing had spread through the veteran community in Oceanside. At the grocery store, a woman she knew from her apartment complex turned away when she saw Sarah. At the VA clinic for Atlas's checkup, the receptionist's sympathy felt like pity. People are talking, her neighbor Dan, a retired Marine, said one evening, saying you stole from the base. It's not true. I believe you, but you know how it is. Mud sticks. Worse, the formal investigation was expanding. Sarah received a letter from Morrison's office demanding her personal financial records, threatening legal action if she didn't comply. She called the one lawyer she could afford, a veterans advocacy attorney named Michael Brennan who took cases pro bono. They're trying to intimidate you, Brennan said after reviewing her case. The evidence they claim to have, we haven't seen any of it yet. That's not how legitimate investigations work. What should I do? Cooperate fully, provide everything they ask for, document everything, and pray we find out who's really behind this before the hearing. Sarah hung up feeling more helpless than ever. At work, though, there was progress. By the end of week 3, Titan was taking commands from Sarah. Basic stuff at first: sit, stay, heel, but then more complex work, searching for hidden objects, identifying specific scents, executing tactical movements. Hayes attended every session, watching with the intensity of someone whose life might depend on this dog. He's coming back, Hayes said one afternoon. I can see Danny in him again. Tell me about Danny, Sarah said. They sat in the observation room while Titan and Atlas rested in the kennel. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Danny was from Texas, Corpus Christi. Joined the Navy to get out of a bad situation. Dad was a drunk. Mom worked 3 jobs. He was funny, man. Always had some joke, even in the worst situations. Hayes's voice thickened. Last op, we were clearing compounds. Danny and Titan went in first like always. IED was wired to a door. Danny triggered it, stepping back to give Titan room to work. I'm sorry. Thing is, Titan tried to warn him. Did his alert, sat down, looked back. But it was dark, things were moving fast. Danny misread it, thought he was reacting to something else. Hayes wiped his eyes roughly. That dog did his job perfectly. Danny just. We all make mistakes in combat, but Titan thinks he failed. That's why he won't work. He's afraid of failing again. Sarah understood then why Wolf had called her. She'd been Titan, grounded after her crash, convinced she'd failed, afraid to trust herself again. We'll get him there, she promised. That night Atlas had a seizure. Sarah rushed him to the emergency vet, where Dr. Webb met her with gentle, terrible kindness. It's time, Sarah, he said. He's suffering. Just a few more weeks, she begged. Please, he's helping another dog. He has a mission. Dr. Webb examined Atlas carefully. I can adjust his medication, try to keep him comfortable, but Sarah, you're going to have to let him go very soon. Days, not weeks. She carried Atlas to the car and sat with him in the parking lot, sobbing into his fur. I need you, she whispered. I can't do this yet. Atlas licked her hand once, weakly. She made it through the next few days on autopilot. Titan was progressing rapidly now, working through advanced scenarios with focus and precision. The deployment date was 3 weeks away. They were going to make it. Then Morrison called. Ms. Chen, we've completed our investigation. The evidence is conclusive. We're moving forward with criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud. You'll be formally charged next week. Sarah's world tilted. What evidence? I haven't seen anything. You'll receive everything through your attorney. I suggest you prepare yourself. Morrison's voice was cold, satisfied. This isn't a game, Ms. Chen. You stole from the United States military. There will be consequences. The call ended. Sarah stood in the Coronado parking lot, shaking. Criminal charges. Not just losing her job, possible prison time, a felony record, complete destruction of everything she was. Atlas was dying. She was being accused of crimes she didn't commit. And in 3 weeks, she had to have Titan ready for deployment or Hayes's team would go without their most important asset. That evening, Rita called. I heard, she said. Sarah, I'm coming down there. You don't need to. The hell I don't. You're not alone in this. But Sarah felt alone, desperately, crushingly alone. She took Atlas to the beach that night, letting him wade in the shallows one last time. The moon was full, painting silver across the black water. I don't know how much more I can take, she told him. Atlas looked at her and she could swear she saw understanding in his eyes. He was tired, so tired, but he was still there, still fighting because she needed him. The formal charges arrived by certified mail on a Tuesday morning. Sarah signed for the envelope with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Inside were 23 pages of allegations: theft of government property, falsification of records, conspiracy to defraud. The numbers were staggering. Over $40,000 in missing equipment and fraudulent purchases, all supposedly traced back to her. She read through the documents 3 times, and with each pass, a cold clarity settled over her. Someone had been very careful. Every falsified record had her digital signature. Every unauthorized purchase appeared to have her approval. They'd even included email exchanges she didn't remember sending. Michael Brennan came to her apartment that afternoon, spreading the papers across her kitchen table, while Atlas slept fitfully in the corner. This is sophisticated, Brennan said, his expression grim. Whoever did this had access to your credentials, your email, probably your workstation. Gerald, Sarah said. It has to be Gerald Hutchins. He's had it out for me since I started. Maybe, but we need proof and we need it fast. Your preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. What are my chances? Brennan was quiet too long. Without evidence of your innocence, not good. They've built a compelling case. A jury would likely convict. Sarah felt the walls closing in. I didn't do this. I believe you, but belief isn't evidence. He gathered the papers. I'm going to hire a forensic analyst to examine these documents. If they're fabricated, there might be digital fingerprints. But Sarah, that costs money. How much? 5,000 minimum. She didn't have $5,000. Her savings had been depleted by medical bills and Atlas's care. She was living on her disability payments and the income from Wolf's contract, which wouldn't last beyond Titan's deployment. After Brennan left, Sarah sat on the floor with Atlas and tried not to fall apart. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You should have kept your head down. Now you'll lose everything. Sarah stared at the message, ice flooding her veins. She called Brennan immediately. That's intimidation, he said. File a police report, save the message. But Sarah knew how these things worked. An anonymous text wasn't enough for police action. Someone was sending a message, back off or it gets worse. She didn't sleep that night. At 400, she gave up trying and took Atlas to the beach. He could barely walk now, even with the adjusted medication. She had to carry him down to the sand. I'm so sorry, buddy, she whispered. I'm failing you. Atlas licked her hand, his tongue dry and rough. The sunrise was spectacular, orange and pink spreading across the horizon like a promise. Sarah took a video on her phone, knowing these mornings were numbered. When she arrived at Coronado at 600, Commander Wolf was waiting outside the kennels. We need to talk, he said. Her stomach dropped. If this is about the charges. It's not, come inside. In his office, Hayes was already there, along with another SEAL Sarah didn't recognize, younger, maybe 28, with the call sign embroidered on his jacket. Rook. Sarah, this is Petty Officer First Class Tyler Warren, Wolf said. He's going to be Titan's new handler. The words didn't make sense at first. What? No, we're 3 weeks from deployment. Titan's bonding with. With you, Hayes interrupted gently. Not with his handler, that's the problem. Wolf pulled up training footage on his computer. It showed Titan working flawlessly through an obstacle course, but following Sarah's commands, looking to her for guidance. When Warren tried to take over, Titan's performance dropped noticeably. He trusts you, Wolf said, but you can't deploy with the team. We need him to transfer that trust to Warren. Sarah felt something crack inside her. So I've failed again. You haven't failed, Hayes said firmly. You brought him back from nothing, but now we need you to do the hardest thing, let him go. How? You're deploying in 3 weeks. We've moved it up, Wolf said quietly. We deploy in 10 days. I need you to work with Warren and Titan, transition the relationship. It's not ideal, but it's what we have. 10 days. The same timeline Dr. Webb had given her for Atlas. Everything was ending at once. Sarah worked through that day in a fog. Warren was competent, respectful, clearly skilled with dogs, but Titan kept looking past him to Sarah, seeking her approval, her commands. He doesn't trust me yet, Warren said during a break. I'm not Danny. He's not looking for Danny, Sarah said. He's looking for someone who understands what he's lost. That evening, Rita arrived from Montana. She pulled up to Sarah's apartment in a rental truck, climbed out with the energy of someone 20 years younger, and pulled Sarah into a fierce hug. All right, Rita said, let's fix this mess. Over dinner, takeout Chinese that neither of them really ate, Sarah laid out everything. The charges, the timeline, the threatening text, Titan's deployment, Atlas's decline. Rita listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. Gerald Hutchins, she said finally, tell me about him. Sarah described her supervisor, his resentment of female veterans, his flagpin patriotism that felt performative, his focus on appearances over competence. And he had access to your computer. We all worked in the same office. He could have logged in as me any time. Rita pulled out her phone. I'm calling in some favors. Rita, you can't. Watch me. Rita had been in the Navy for 26 years. She knew people, people who knew people. Within an hour, she had 3 phone calls scheduled for the next morning. One with a friend in Naval Criminal Investigative Service, one with a veterans advocacy group that had legal resources, and one with a retired logistics officer who'd worked at Camp Pendleton for 15 years. We're going to find out who's really behind this, Rita said. But Sarah, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that we can't fix it in time. Then I go to prison for something I didn't do. Then we appeal, we fight, we never stop fighting, but that's worst case. Rita gripped her hand. You're a fighter, Sarah. You survived a helicopter crash. You rebuilt your life. You're saving a war dog while your own dog is dying. Don't you dare give up now. The next few days were a blur of activity. Rita worked the phones while Sarah split her time between Titan's training and meeting with Brennan's forensic analyst, a woman named Dr. Patel, who examined the evidence with meticulous care. These emails, Dr. Patel said on day 3, the metadata is inconsistent. Some were sent from IP addresses that don't match your home or office. Can you prove I didn't send them? I can prove someone with different network access sent them. Whether that's enough to clear you, she trailed off meaningfully. At Coronado, Titan's transition to Warren was progressing slowly. The dog would work with him, but without the confidence and precision he showed with Sarah. They were running out of time. Hayes pulled Sarah aside on day 6. We might have to leave him behind. No, give me 3 more days. Sarah, 3 days, please. Hayes studied her, then nodded. 3 days, then we make the call. That night, Atlas stopped eating entirely. Sarah tried everything, his favorite treats, hand-feeding, warming his food. Nothing worked. His breathing was labored, his eyes glassy with pain. Dr. Webb made a house call at 2100. Sarah, he said gently, it's time. She knew, of course she knew, but knowing didn't make it easier. Can we wait until morning? I want to take him to the beach one more time. If you can keep him comfortable tonight, yes. But Sarah, no longer than that. He's suffering. After Webb left, Sarah lay on the floor with Atlas, her arms around him. I'm not ready, she whispered. I need more time. Atlas's breathing was shallow, ragged, but he shifted slightly, pressing closer to her, and she understood. It wasn't about her being ready. It was about letting him go with dignity. At 500, she carried Atlas to her car. The beach was empty, just Sarah and her dying dog and the vast Pacific turning from black to gray in the pre-dawn light. She waded into the shallows with him in her arms, letting the cold water wash over his paws one last time. Atlas's eyes were open, watching the horizon. You saved me, Sarah told him. When I thought I'd lost everything, you gave me a reason to keep going. And now you're doing it again, teaching Titan, teaching me. That's your legacy, buddy. You're a warrior to the end. The sun broke the horizon, flooding the world with gold. Sarah called Dr. Webb. I'm ready. He met her at the emergency clinic. They did it in a room with windows overlooking the ocean, with Sarah holding Atlas and telling him he was the best dog, the bravest dog, that she loved him and would never forget him. When it was over, the silence was deafening. Sarah drove home in the full light of day, Atlas's collar on the passenger seat, and let herself shatter. She called Wolf. I can't come in today. I heard, take all the time you need. I don't have time, we have 3 days. Sarah, Atlas would want me to finish this. I'll be there tomorrow. She spent the rest of the day going through Atlas's things, his toys, his bowls, his favorite blanket. Rita sat with her, not offering empty comfort, just presence. That evening, Michael Brennan called. We have a problem. Morrison moved the hearing up. It's now scheduled for this Friday. That's in 3 days. I know, we're filing an objection, but Sarah, They're pushing this through fast. Someone wants you convicted before anyone can dig too deep. Dr. Patel's analysis. It's not enough. Not yet. We need the actual source of the falsified records. After the call, Sarah sat in the growing dark of her apartment and felt the full weight of her situation. Atlas was gone. Titan was deploying in 3 days without being fully ready. Her hearing was in 3 days, and she was going to be convicted of crimes she didn't commit. She'd hit bottom before, after the crash, during the worst of her recovery. But this was different. This wasn't physical pain or lost capability. This was her integrity, her honor, everything she'd built her identity around. Rita found her on the balcony at midnight, staring at nothing. "Talk to me," Rita said. "I don't know how to fight anymore. I'm so tired." "I know, but you're going to keep fighting anyway because that's who you are." "What if it's not enough?" "Then we'll deal with that when it comes, but we're not there yet." Sarah wanted to believe her. She wanted to have faith that truth would win, that justice would prevail. But the world didn't work that way. She'd learned that the hard way. The next morning, she forced herself to go to Coronado. Warren and Titan were already working when she arrived. Hayes was watching with barely concealed concern. "How's he doing?" Sarah asked. "Better, not great." Hayes turned to her. "I'm sorry about Atlas." "Thank you." They worked all morning. Sarah coached Warren on reading Titan's signals, on building trust through consistency and calm authority. By afternoon, there was noticeable improvement. "It's clicking," Warren said, cautiously optimistic. But Sarah could see Titan's hesitation. The dog was competent but not confident. Not yet. That evening, she stayed late with Titan alone. She sat in his kennel without Atlas for the first time, and the absence was crushing. "I know you miss him," she told Titan. "I do too. But he taught you something important, how to keep going when everything hurts. You honor Danny by being the best working dog you can be. You honor Atlas by not giving up." Titan rested his head on her lap, and they sat in the gathering darkness together, two souls bound by loss. On Thursday morning, 1 day before her hearing, 2 days before deployment, Sarah received a call from an unknown number. "Is this Lieutenant Chen?" A woman's voice hesitant. "Yes." "This is Deborah Hutchins, Gerald's wife. We need to talk." Part 4, Rise and Truth. Sarah met Deborah Hutchins at a coffee shop in downtown Oceanside, far enough from Camp Pendleton that they wouldn't be seen together. Deborah was in her late 50s, wearing a cardigan despite the mild weather, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't touched. "I shouldn't be here," Deborah said as Sarah sat down. "Gerald Wood." She stopped, took a breath. "I found something in his home office. I wasn't snooping, I was just looking for our tax documents, and there was a folder." She slid a flash drive across the table. "What is this?" Sarah asked. "Invoices, purchase orders, all with your signature, but—" Deborah's voice dropped to a whisper. "I saw Gerald practicing your signature months ago. He said it was because you were out sick and he needed to approve an urgent shipment. I didn't think anything of it then." Sarah felt her heart hammering. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I heard him on the phone yesterday. He was talking to that Morrison woman, saying you'd be dealt with by Friday, that everything was going perfectly." Deborah's eyes filled with tears. "I've been married to Gerald for 32 years. I know when he's lying, and I know he's done something terrible to you." Sarah took the flash drive with shaking hands. "Does he know you have this?" "No, I copied it this morning while he was at work. I made copies, one for you, one for a friend who's holding it safe." Deborah leaned forward. "My husband is a proud man, too proud. He couldn't stand having a woman, especially a veteran woman, showing him up. You were good at your job, better than him. He couldn't handle that." "Thank you," Sarah said, her voice thick. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. What he's doing is wrong." Deborah stood to leave, then paused. "I heard about your dog. I'm very sorry." After Deborah left, Sarah sat in her car and called Brennan immediately. "I think we just caught a break," she said. The flash drive contained everything. Gerald's personal notes detailing how he'd been skimming money from supply budgets for 2 years, using complex requisition schemes to hide the theft. He'd created a web of fake vendors and inflated prices, pocketing the difference. And when an audit had been scheduled, he'd panicked and framed Sarah to cover his tracks. Brennan's voice on the phone was electric with energy. "This is it. This is everything we need. I'm getting this to the prosecutor immediately." "What about the hearing tomorrow?" "I'll file an emergency motion. With this evidence, they'll have to postpone. Sarah, we're going to clear your name." That afternoon, Sarah went to Coronado with a lightness she hadn't felt in weeks. Rita had called earlier with her own news. Her contact at NCIS was opening an investigation into Gerald based on Deborah's information. "It's happening," Rita had said. "Justice is slow, but it's coming." At the kennels, Sarah found Commander Wolf waiting for her. "We need to run Titan through final qualifications today," he said. "The team deploys at 600 tomorrow. Is he ready?" Sarah watched Warren working with Titan in the training yard. The dog was focused, responsive, executing commands with precision. But there was still something missing, that edge, that complete trust that made a working dog truly effective in combat. "I honestly don't know," Sarah admitted. "Then let's find out." They set up the full qualification course, an intense scenario that simulated real combat conditions. Titan had to detect hidden explosives, navigate obstacles, locate a mock enemy combatant, and execute a tactical apprehension, all while responding perfectly to Warren's commands. Hayes and his team watched from the observation deck. These men would be trusting their lives to Titan in a matter of days. "Titan heel," Warren commanded. The Malinois moved into position, his attention locked on his handler. They started the course. For the first half, everything went perfectly. Titan detected the first 3 simulated IEDs without hesitation, alerting with the precise sitting behavior that had saved countless lives. He navigated the obstacle course with athletic grace, cleared a mock building with tactical precision. Then they reached the final phase, a scenario where Titan had to leave Warren's side, advance alone through a darkened corridor to locate a threat, then return to his handler's command. It was the exact type of scenario where Danny had died. Warren gave the command, "Titan seek." Titan started forward, then stopped. His body went rigid. Sarah recognized the signs immediately. He was having a flashback, trapped between training and trauma. "Titan seek," Warren repeated, his voice calm but firm. The dog didn't move. His breathing accelerated. He was shutting down. Sarah made a decision. She stepped onto the course, ignoring Wolf's surprised look. "Sarah, what are you?" Warren started. She walked up to Titan and knelt down, bringing herself to his level. "Hey, warrior, I know you're scared. I know this is hard." She placed her hand gently on his side, feeling his rapid heartbeat. "But Atlas believed in you. He spent his last weeks teaching you that it's okay to be afraid and still do your job. That's what courage is." Titan turned his head to look at her, his eyes uncertain. "Danny's gone, Atlas is gone, but Warren is here and he needs you. Those men up there," she gestured to Hayes and his team, "they need you. You're not doing this alone, you never were." She stood and stepped back, nodding to Warren. "Titan seek," Warren commanded one more time. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Titan looked from Sarah to Warren, seemed to make a decision, and moved forward into the darkened corridor. He advanced with confidence, located the mock threat, returned to Warren's side, and sat in perfect alert position. The observation deck erupted in quiet cheers. Warren knelt and embraced his dog, and Sarah saw tears on the young SEAL's face. "Good boy, Titan. Such a good boy." Hayes came down to the training floor. "He passed. Hell, he more than passed." He turned to Sarah. What you did just then, that's what we needed, thank you. It wasn't me, Sarah said. It was Atlas. Everything Titan just showed you, he learned from an old German shepherd who refused to quit even when he was dying. That evening the team gathered for a brief ceremony. It wasn't official or formal, just Warren, Hayes, the 4 other SEALs who made up the unit, Wolf and Sarah. Hayes presented Warren with Titan's deployment vest, the same one Danny had used, carefully cleaned and repaired. "You're carrying on a legacy," he told Warren. "Danny would be proud." Then Hayes turned to Sarah. "We have something for you too." He handed her a shadow box. Inside was Danny's SEAL trident, along with a photo of him and Titan and a handwritten note. "To whoever trains Titan next, thank you for taking care of my boy. He's the best partner I ever had. Make sure he knows he's loved. Danny Cruz." "Danny made that before his last deployment," Hayes said quietly. "Just in case, we want you to have it." Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded, clutching the shadow box. That night, Rita took her to dinner at a small Mexican restaurant near the beach. "Your hearing was postponed," Rita said over margaritas Sarah hadn't ordered but desperately needed. "Brennan got an emergency stay. The prosecutor saw the evidence from the flash drive and is now investigating Gerald. Word is, Morrison is cooperating fully. She had no idea she was being used." "What happens to Gerald?" "Federal embezzlement charges. He's going to prison for a long time. And Sarah, the base commander, wants to meet with you next week, officially, to apologize." Sarah took a long drink. "I still lost my job." "You lost a job that was killing your soul, but you're about to get something better," Rita smiled. "Wolf called me. He wants to offer you a permanent position training military working dogs. Full-time, good benefits, doing work that matters. He told you before telling me. He wanted to make sure you'd consider it before he made it official. Will you?" Sarah thought about Titan deploying tomorrow, thought about the shadow box with Danny's note, thought about Atlas spending his final weeks giving another dog purpose. "Yeah," she said, "I will." Friday morning came too early. Sarah stood on the tarmac at Naval Base Coronado watching the team load their gear onto a C-17. Titan wore his deployment vest, walking calmly beside Warren, every inch the professional working dog. Warren brought Titan over to say goodbye. "Take care of him," Sarah said. "I will, I promise." Warren hesitated. "He's not going to replace Danny for me, but he's teaching me that it's okay to move forward, just like you said." Sarah knelt and hugged Titan one last time. "Be safe, warrior. Make Atlas proud." Titan licked her face once, then turned and trotted toward the aircraft with Warren, ready to work, ready to serve. Hayes was the last to board. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything." The C-17's engines roared to life. Sarah stood with Wolf and Rita, watching until the aircraft was just a speck in the morning sky. "You did good," Wolf said. "Atlas did good," Sarah corrected. "I just showed up." Sometimes that's enough. The following week was a whirlwind. The formal investigation into Gerald Hutchins expanded to include 3 other contractors who'd been part of his embezzlement scheme. Morrison, who'd been genuinely misled, provided crucial testimony. The total theft was over $200,000 across 3 years. Sarah's name was officially cleared. The base commander, Colonel Patricia Warren, no relation to Tyler, issued a public apology and offered to reinstate her to a logistics position if she wanted it. Sarah declined. She'd already accepted Wolf's offer. Michael Brennan refused payment for his legal work. "You're a veteran who served honorably. This one's on the house." But the real vindication came 2 weeks later, at the grocery store. The woman who'd turned away from Sarah before approached her in the produce section. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I heard what really happened. I'm sorry I believed the rumors." Sarah could have been bitter. Instead, she said, "It's okay. We all make mistakes." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for your service, both your military service and what you did with that dog program. My nephew's a SEAL. He says what you're doing saves lives." Small moments like that kept happening. The veteran community was small, and word spread fast. The woman who'd been accused and cleared, who'd trained a combat dog while her own dog was dying, who'd shown that honor still meant something. Rita stayed for a month, helping Sarah move to a small house closer to Coronado, setting up her new life. On her last night before heading back to Montana, they sat on Sarah's new porch watching the sunset. "You proud of yourself?" Rita asked. "Getting there." "Good, you should be." Rita raised her beer. "To Atlas, the best of us." "To Atlas," Sarah echoed. Part 5, Powerful Resolution. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the training yard at Coronado with a new dog, a 2-year-old German Shepherd named Nova who'd been donated to the program by a breeder in Oregon. Nova was smart, eager, and reminded Sarah painfully of a young Atlas. "All right, girl," Sarah said. "Let's see what you've got." Her phone buzzed, a video call from an international number. Hayes's face appeared on screen, grainy but smiling. "Hey, Sarah." "Marcus, how are you? How's Titan?" "See for yourself." The camera shifted to show Titan lying in the shade of a compound wall, panting but alert. He looked good, fit, focused, alive with purpose. "He's been incredible," Hayes said. 3 weeks ago, he detected an IED that would have taken out our whole convoy. Last week, he located a weapons cache that Intel had been searching for months. He's saving lives, Sarah, just like you knew he would." "How's Warren doing with him?" "They're a solid team. It took time, but Titan trusts him completely now." Hayes paused. "Danny would be happy. Atlas would be happy." After the call ended, Sarah sat with Nova and thought about the journey that had brought her here. The crash that had ended her flying career. The accusations that had nearly destroyed her reputation. Atlas dying while teaching one last lesson about courage and purpose. "You want to know a secret?" she told Nova. "I didn't think I'd survive any of it, but here's what I learned. Strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every single time, even when you don't think you can." Nova tilted her head, listening with the intensity only dogs can manage. That evening, Sarah attended a ceremony at Camp Pendleton. Colonel Warren was presenting awards to several personnel, and Sarah had been asked to attend. "Lieutenant Sarah Chen," the colonel announced, "would you please come forward?" Sarah walked to the podium, confused. Lieutenant Chen served as a naval aviator with distinction before being medically retired following a helicopter accident, Colonel Warren said. Recently, she was falsely accused of crimes against the United States military, accusations that were proven to be entirely fabricated. Throughout this ordeal, she maintained her dignity, her integrity, and her commitment to service. The colonel held up a certificate. "This is a formal commendation for your work with the Multi-Purpose Canine Program, specifically for your exceptional training of military working dog Titan, who has since saved numerous lives in theater. But more than that, this is an apology and a thank you. You were treated unjustly by people who should have known better. Your perseverance and honor reflect the very best of our military values." The audience, mostly base personnel and contractors, stood and applauded. Sarah saw several people she'd worked with in logistics, now looking at her with respect and something like shame. After the ceremony, Commander Wolf found her. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Strange, good, like closing a chapter." "Ready to write the next one?" "Absolutely." The next one was already taking shape. Sarah's training program was expanding. She now had 3 dogs in various stages of preparation, and Wolf had secured funding for her to develop a specialized curriculum for service dogs that could transition to military working dogs, bridging the gap between veteran support animals and combat canines. She also started volunteering with a veterans advocacy group, helping other former service members navigate false accusations and legal challenges. Her experience with Gerald Hutchins had taught her how vulnerable veterans could be to exploitation and scapegoating. "You're becoming a force," Rita said during one of their weekly phone calls. "I'm proud of you, kid. I'm just doing what you taught me, showing up and doing the work. That's all any of us can do." 6 months after Titan's deployment, Sarah received a package. Inside was a handwritten letter from Tyler Warren. "Sarah, Titan and I just completed our deployment. We're both home safe, and he's officially credited with saving 17 lives through IED detection and tactical operations. The team voted to recommend him for a Military Working Dog Medal of Commendation. I wanted you to know that Danny's family came to see Titan when we got back. His mom said knowing Titan was still serving and saving lives helped her make sense of Danny's sacrifice. She asked me to thank you for not giving up on him. I think about what you said, that courage is being afraid and doing your job anyway. Titan showed me that every single day. He made me a better handler and a better SEAL. Attached is a photo from our deployment. Thought you'd want to see him in action. Semper Fi. Tyler." The photo showed Titan in his combat vest, sitting in perfect alert position in front of a dusty compound wall. Behind him, Hayes and his team stood ready. The dog looked confident, powerful, purposeful. Sarah had the photo framed and hung it in her office at Coronado, next to the shadow box with Danny's trident. 1 year after Atlas died, Sarah drove to the beach at dawn. She carried a small wooden box containing his ashes and walked to their favorite spot, the place where she'd brought him that last morning. The Pacific was calm, reflecting the pink and gold of sunrise. Sarah waded into the shallows and opened the box, letting Atlas return to the ocean he'd loved. "Thank you," she said to the water, the sky, the memory of her best friend. "For saving me, for teaching Titan, for showing me that even when we're broken, we can still serve a purpose." A wave washed over her feet, pulling some of the ashes out into the deeper water. "I'm okay now," she continued. "I have good work. I'm helping other dogs, other handlers. You'd be proud of what we're building." She stayed until the box was empty and the sun was fully risen, then walked back to her car where Nova waited patiently. "Come on, girl," Sarah said. "We've got work to do." At Coronado, a new group of handlers was arriving for training. Sarah met them in the briefing room, standing in front of photos of military working dogs who'd served with distinction, including a new one of Titan from his deployment. "Welcome to the Multi-Purpose Canine Program," she began. "I'm Sarah Chen, and I'm going to be your primary instructor for basic handler certification." She looked at the young faces before her, Marines, Navy, Army, all eager and nervous. "Before we start, I want to tell you a story about a German Shepherd named Atlas and a Malinois named Titan. It's a story about loss, trust, and the incredible bond between handlers and their dogs. It's also a story about why this work matters more than you can possibly imagine right now." She spent the next hour telling them everything: Atlas's role in her recovery, the accusations she'd faced, Titan's trauma and breakthrough, the lives saved by a dog who almost gave up. "The dogs you're going to work with aren't just tools," she concluded. "They're partners, teammates, warriors. They'll save your life and you'll save theirs. Sometimes that salvation is physical, detecting a bomb, neutralizing a threat. Sometimes it's emotional, giving you a reason to keep going when everything else falls apart." One of the young handlers raised his hand. "How do you know when you found the right dog?" Sarah smiled. "You don't find them, they find you. And when they do, you honor that by being worthy of their trust every single day." That evening, Sarah returned to her small house. It was simple but comfortable, a real home, not just a place to sleep. Nova greeted her at the door with enthusiastic wiggling. Sarah made dinner, reviewed her training notes for tomorrow's session, and settled onto her porch with a beer as the sun set. The ocean was visible from here, a thin strip of blue between houses. Her phone chimed. A message from Rita saw the article about you in Navy Times. From pilot to trainer, one veteran's journey from injustice to impact. You're famous now. Sarah laughed and typed back, famous is overselling it, but it's good work. Rita's response came immediately, the best work. Atlas would be proud. Yes, Sarah wrote, he would. She sat in the gathering darkness, listening to the distant sound of waves, feeling Nova's weight against her leg. The past year had been the hardest of her life, harder than the crash, harder than learning to walk again, harder than anything she'd imagined surviving. But she had survived. More than that, she'd found purpose again. The accusations had been cleared. Gerald Hutchins was serving a 6-year federal sentence. Diane Morrison had actually become an ally, using her oversight position to help identify and prevent similar fraud schemes across multiple bases. Titan had completed 2 more deployments, saving countless lives and becoming one of the most decorated military working dogs in recent history. Tyler Warren sent regular updates, and Sarah had been invited to attend Titan's eventual retirement ceremony whenever that day came. Her training program had expanded to include working with handlers who'd lost their dogs in combat, helping them bond with new partners. It was hard work, reopening wounds, confronting trauma, but Sarah was uniquely qualified for it. She knew what loss looked like. She knew how to find purpose on the other side of it. You know what I learned, Nova, Sarah said to the shepherd dozing beside her. Rock bottom isn't the end. Sometimes it's the foundation you build your whole life on. Nova's tail thumped once in sleepy agreement. Sarah finished her beer and headed inside. Tomorrow would bring new handlers to train, new dogs to evaluate, new challenges to overcome. But tonight, she was exactly where she needed to be.